America. Thank you very much for having me. I'm Stephen Colbert. This is the Colbert Report. So tonight we talk about an ethical issue that has been hitting the news a lot of late. It's an issue that talks about the concepts of power, wealth, and justice. And no, nation, we're not talking about Romney 2016. So tonight we're actually going to be talking about the compensation of CEOs. Now recently, experts have been wondering, are CEOs' salaries getting a little bit too out of hand? Take a look at this.
Compensation disclosure from the very top to the very bottom. Bloomberg's Lizzie.
CEO James Skinner in 2009 made $17.5 million. The median food services worker made $17,000.
Clearer disclosure of the link between pay and performance. The pay rate.
Now nation, I don't know about you, but last time I heard, this was America. I mean, this was supposed to be the land of opportunity, where people can follow their American dreams of making millions and blowing it all on tigers and diamond-encrusted rock necklaces. I mean, it seems to me like our founding fathers would be appalled at the idea of limiting these Americans in their pursuit of wealth and happiness. I mean, it was those honest, hard-working principles that established this great country that we know today. Now, these golden parachutes have recently raised some concern, and have even gotten the government involved with an increased requirement for transparency in the SEC filings. Now, I just don't understand America. I don't understand how you can be so clearly against golden parachutes when the government seems so clearly fond of golden showers. While some CEO salaries have been shown to be made up of 11 average workers' salaries, some CEO salaries are made up of 380 of their average workers' salaries. Now, in case you didn't know, America, that's a lot. Now, I know that we usually do better as Americans with food as opposed to numbers, so in order to demonstrate the severity of this circumstance, my intern will come in and help us out. America, please meet my adopted intern, who actually just got his driver's license, so he can also be my chauffeur, Jun Byung. A little demonstration here. Now, June, what's your favorite food?
Oatmeal cream pie.
Great. Now, to demonstrate how many employees' salaries it takes to equal one CEO's salary, we're going to use a demonstration, and in order to do this, I will eat one oatmeal cream pie, and you will eat 310. Go.
Wait, what?
Don't waste time with all your whats. Go, you're losing valuable time.
Okay.
Now, nation, while I do find that CEO compensation is fair game, I do wonder why a CEO of a bunch of malls can make over $137 million in 1 year. Here to discuss this with us is Wall Street Journal commentator Justin Hoffman. Justin? So please, Justin, tell me, why is it that these know-nothing CEOs like David Simon of Simon Malls are making as much as, say, I don't know, incredibly handsome TV show hosts?
Well, Stephen, there are a couple things that factor into it. One of which is that companies are afraid that if they don't pay their top executives competitive salaries to other executives in the industry, that the CEOs are just going to up and leave for another company.
But isn't that a very real possibility? I mean, if you don't pay your head guys enough, can you lose them to another TV show? Organization?
Well, you know, interestingly enough, studies have shown that in actuality, skill sets between companies and industries are often so distinct that CEOs rarely move companies. And additionally, when they do make these really extreme shifts, there are highly correlated levels of failure with this somewhat nomadic approach to executive hiring. And this frequently poses a pretty severe conflict of interest for the company as a whole. Now, because there are very rarely occasions where some from the outside will step in and say, you know what, let's make sure that the CEO compensation packages are, appropriate on a company-wide scope.
I mean, Justin, don't you agree that CEOs deserve to make that much money? You know, it's extremely exhausting having to, tell people what to do. How you doing back there, June?
Well, sure, CEOs definitely have their work cut out for them, but a CEO's compensation is usually determined by a board of their peers, so their friends and their subordinates are usually the ones that are going to end up deciding exactly how they're going to be paid.
I do that all the time. Yeah, I tell the producers that if they don't pay me like Jon Stewart, then I'm gone.
Well, Steven, wouldn't you agree that that's unethical, though?
I mean, not as unethical as child labor, but children, in the end, really do the best work. Tiny fingers for sewing.
Well, see, Steven, companies have their own agendas when deciding the large compensation packages for these CEOs.
Now, Tim Cook has an annual salary of $378 million. I mean, that seems like an awful lot of cash for Apple to just be doling out as a salary, don't you think? Wouldn't a company maybe feel a bit weird giving that much cash to one person in their company?
Well, that's actually a common misconception. Not all CEO compensation is in the form of cash. A lot of it's stock options and retirement benefits that are not currently accessible to the recipient. Mostly in equity grants and changes in pension value. The CEO of GE, Jeffrey Immelt, had a reported compensation of $21.58 million in 2011, but only a third of that was cash total. This new transparency and classification of compensation is due to new SEC mandates.
Wait, what? So these CEOs have to go around and tell everybody what they make? I mean, geez, isn't everybody going to feel insecure and inadequate by doing something like that? I mean, why don't we just put them all on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous? Geez, where's Robin Leach when you need him? I'm just kidding, but regardless, I mean, if they're being so transparent about all these things, then where exactly does the ethical issue actually lie?
It might not be so much focused on personal actions as much as business motivations. Now, per the Internal Revenue Code, there's a $1 million cap on tax deductions per executive for salaries paid to a public firm's top executive officers, which, Steven, that incentivizes these companies to offer compensations other than cash. These items have no deduction cap, so companies can provide as much compensation as they want and not worry about limitations for tax deductions. Now, the catch is that this cap has gone unchanged for decades, not even altered for inflation. Many experts do agree that the rise in CEO compensation over the last few decades can be attributed to the rising incentive to compensate their executives more while maximizing deductions.
Ah, the American dream. Cheating the system to be able to make more money. In fact, we should probably, reward them for their ingenuity and their creativity, not harp on them for the unethical practices. Justin, it was a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, Steven. It was my pleasure.
Steven, this is kind of a lot.
What? Roger? I can't really hear you. Your mouth seems a little bit full.
This is kind of a lot.
You know, America, I'm really starting to side with some of these CEOs. I mean, why can't I get paid as much as Jon Stewart? Sarah, can I have a pay raise?
No, Steven.
But we're even better than The Daily Show. Come on.
I may just be a television producer and not a student taking business law and ethics, but that sounds a lot like peer benchmarking to me.
Ah, yes, peer benchmarking. Now that leads me to my next segment I like to call The Word. The word today is stompensation. Now, half a century ago, the median pay for top executives was, on average, about 30 times the average salaries of their workers. But now we've gotten to a point where we're 10 times larger than even that. I mean, how did we even get here, America? The popular perception is that CEOs are greedily rubbing their hands and mustaches together, approving their own checks. Much like R. Kelly at a high school volleyball game. Companies actually decide their compensation for their CEOs based upon their peers. Now, we've come to find that these peers are actually more sizable and successful companies that these board of directors are trying to compare themselves to. Now, naturally, this leads to higher and higher compensations given to these CEOs because board of directors start believing that if they don't pay their top guys the best, then they're probably going to end up leaving. Now, these compensation committees allegedly use their discretion in deciding their compensation packages for their top executives, leading to claims of abuse by committees that have too cozy of a relationship with their top executives. Now, let's be all honest here, though. We all want to be a little bit better than average. Now, this rising tide in peer pay over the last few decades may well have snowballed through a positive feedback loop into the dramatic increase in corner office salaries that we see today. But studies have shown that chief executives cannot usually transfer their skills from the companies that they transfer to. The peer group is based on a theory of transferability of talent. But they have found that CEOs don't move very often, and when they do, their next ventures usually end up flopping. Now, critics say that compensation should be based on merit, not some sort of group mechanism. They want CEO compensation to be tied to individual company performance, not the pay changes of the outside executives. Now, otherwise, you get an ethical dilemma. Now, I, for one, think that the lesson here is that we shouldn't dump the baby of peer benchmarking out with the bathwater. CEO pay should be tied to the success of the companies that they lead. And whenever they find an actual comparable peer, that's when they should probably use the peer benchmarking mechanism. Because otherwise, we can always count on the rich and famous to do the right thing when no one's watching. Well, that's it for today, America. We hope that you enjoyed our CEO compensation show on the Colbert Report today, where we're planning for a better tomorrow.
And action.
Ah, the American dream.